Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Oxford House Project. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. My name's Charles, and today, this episode, it's not going to be a very long one, but we're going to show what we did over the weekend. Most notably, we plugged a big hole, and then I found another broken thing. So, I guess let's get going. All right, so first things first, we're on the roof. Well, we're not on the roof, we're close to on the roof. We're on a ladder at least. And yeah, so over the weekend, my brother and I got to working on patching the biggest hole in the house, and that's up here on the roof. Now, in the meantime, we did kind of also patch another hole. Someone posted the other day that it didn't seem like I knew anything about old houses, and that's exactly true. I do not. They are entirely correct. But the plan is not just to, do this haphazardly completely. It's going to look that way for a while, but as you can see behind me, my one hole is patched just by throwing a piece of plywood over it and screwing it down. I need to get some more screws, but right now it's temporarily in there enough to not go anywhere. We've had a pretty good storm come through and a lot of wind and everything, and it's still here, so obviously what I've got done so far is holding. But the initial plan isn't to start saving everything in the house from day one. Really, this first step in this project is more stabilizing everything, and that includes the roof and some other things. But yeah, so how we patched this was basically we used some plywood and we threw it over top of the hole, and then the hole behind us, the big hole, we kind of did the same thing. So basically we treated the plywood as big shingles, basically, as much as we could, at least over the main hole section. So we've got there's 7 sheets of 3/8 inch plywood up here, and I'll go over why I've used that in a minute when we get inside. But like the middle 3 are all overlapping like great big pairs of shingles, and the sides are just butted up just because that's where they were. Now, it's not a perfect solution. It's not fully sealed. It's not even tar papered over like I planned on, mainly because, and if I'm completely honest, the roof is not structurally sound enough to get up on to the height of which we would need to paper over these pieces of plywood. So yeah, basically I don't dare walk on the roof that high to get to it. We do have a rope tied off and stuff like that for safety, but it's not something that I'm going to put a lot of weight on the roof. And we'll go over why a little bit more again when we get inside, which I guess we'll do in a moment. Probably later this afternoon after work, I will come back over, and I do want to put a piece of tar paper along the bottom edge of everything. The problem is I'm on this big old ladder, which is up, which is great, but it's over here in the corner. I'm not about to, again, get on the roof and then walk over that way. I have a smaller ladder over there that lets me get up onto the roof of this little bay window area. And I can also hop up in that tree, but it's, so yeah, it's not exactly the greatest way to do things. So, but anyway, yeah, so that's kind of the plan, is just to tidy that up. But let's go inside and I'll talk a little bit more about what we've got going on. Okay, so here we are coming inside the house. Now, I want to point out, if you can tell, you can see back there how the carpet is grayish, and then here it's more darkish. It's because this is wet, okay? That's to be expected when you have wet carpet. Because there is still some water that does come down through here, because again, like I said, that is not a perfect solution when it comes to the roof. It is a Band-Aid at best. But you'll notice as we walk upstairs that it is darker. And then if we look above the stairs, we don't have that great big pile of light up there. We've still got some debris down here from when I threw it down. But yeah, that part is definitely much, much better than it was. If we look around the rest of the upstairs, using a light, because we need to. So like you'll notice over here, the walls over here are not wet anymore. But I can also tell in here, this other room where this hole was, that it doesn't look it, but this is a lot drier than it had been. So now let's Let's pop our head up into the attic. Hopefully there's no critters up there waiting to surprise me. And I'll show you how we did the inside of up here. And again, not perfect. It's not, it's nothing to write home about. But it's kind of one of those, this is what we needed to do with what we had to do it with kind of solutions. All right, so the lighting is much worse now because, well, as you can see, there's a lot of plywood over everything behind us. So I'm going to turn the camera around and we'll go over kind of how we did this, at least for the time being, and what the plans are. Okay, so first things first, if we come over here, now this is the back end of the house. Oops, I forgot where I was going. See, without having holes up here, I can't see where I'm going. So this part here, this is where that L's off. This is where that big column down below is rotted. That big beam across that one room is also rotted out. And what used to be a hole. Now, unfortunately, this one, if you can see how the floor is kind of multi-level, that's because that's where the floor of the attic, or I should say more the ceiling joists of that room, because that beam is so bad, are sinking down, and as such there's no way we were walking out there to try to, you know, brace anything from inside. That's why this hole got a plywood over it treatment. But if we come back around, you can see what we've done to temporarily support everything for now in order to at least get the hole covered up. So what we did first is we took a bunch of 2x4s, we ripped them down, and we put them over on the good side of the roof. Now, a lot of these are actually loosened up now because of all this stuff we've been doing. Now, back over to the ugly part. That's this mess. And, yep, so it is a very ugly mess. What we did is we cut a bunch of these 2x8x12 rafters. We cut them at an angle down to fit onto that top massive beam down there. We stuck one end in, and then we kind of raised the other end and more or less jacked it up into position as best as we could. Now, we didn't go all the way. We weren't trying to go for straight or for perfect or anything like that. This is solely to support the roof in any way, shape, or form that we can in order to then turn around and you know, put the plywood on the outside. We do have supports on some of the other beams that weren't broken, at least for the time being. But yes, we jacked these into place and then put some supports underneath them to hold them there. Did the same thing over here, and you can see we used some structural bolts, or I think they're called structural screws. These are 5-inchers that we bolted this to the rafter with, in addition to just putting the supports underneath. We've done that all the way down. Now, a couple of these you're going to notice are hanging free, but that's just because those are the last ones we did. But, so for this middle section, we needed to cut away a lot of the bad stuff because it was just a mess, right? And it still is, and a lot of this needs to get removed. But we'll get to that later. Right now, it was a matter of getting all the rain out. So, again, we've supported everything from the outside in, and then when we got to the middle, this middle section here, we re-supported things using 2x12s sideways across this. My brother did this when I had to run an errand, so we ran a 2x12 lengthwise across the roof, a pair of them, so that way we had something to screw plywood to. We then blocked that middle section of those 2x with some more blocks onto this cross beam, which is also tied in back up here. And then, as you can see, we just continued down there. Now, this 2x12 in the middle was solely to brace this middle section while we started doing some other things, and now it is holding no weight. As you can see, there's nothing holding that up. So this 2x12 or 2x8 rather, 2x8x12, this one can come away, and it no longer needs to be up there. And I've got some extras and stuff so we can re-support things. Okay, so that's what we've done so far, and now let's go back downstairs where there's light, and we'll talk real quick about, well, why I've done it this way versus other options, and then we'll go take a look at a broken beam, and then some final thoughts. So the other question, and this is one my brother was actually posing to me as well during this process, was why not just have bought 16-foot 2x10s and just made all new rafters from the peak all the way down, and put the right plywood on and so forth. And I do understand the logic behind that. But there's two reasons for this. I guess we'll call it 2.5. The first one was just cost, because what I've got up there in lumber is about $800 worth at today's prices, versus, you know, obviously a lot more when you upsize your rafters, you make them longer, and then you buy the proper thickness plywood, because 3/8 plywood is not what you would put on a roof for sheathing. It just isn't. At least it's not what I'm going to put on a roof for sheathing. Even my little shed, I've got heavier than that. That kind of hinges with the other reason, that is the entire roof is going to be replaced anyway. The question did come up, why are we replacing the entire roof when the other side of the roof seems to be fine? And that is because upon closer inspection, those big beams that go across, those 1x12s that are the old school stuff, the old school sheathing, I guess we'll call it, that stuff really isn't good. Yes, it's been up there for almost 200 years. Yes, it's done its job for that long, but the shingles are absolutely gone. Some of the rafters up there are starting to bow on that side, which is also why I was happy to put those little supports in there. But those supports were literally just put in to make sure that that side of the roof didn't collapse when we started messing around with the other side. They weren't put in there to try to straighten anything up. Again, the beams themselves, the planks themselves are pretty bad. The shingles are not much better. There's still a lot of water comes through. I actually noticed that on the other side too, is that we had a really big rainstorm come through on Monday. And when it did, when I was up there Monday night, not only did some water come in here, obviously, but like water had permeated through a lot of the places where there weren't holes. So yes, the whole roof needs to be replaced. And it seemed silly to me to replace like you know, 10% of the roof when the whole thing needs to be replaced anyway. Now I'm estimating that the entire roof is going to cost me somewhere in the neighborhood of about $10,000 to replace. That's not contracted out, that's us doing it. And honestly, I don't think I could afford to pay somebody 30 grand to come fix in what we could do for 10. It wouldn't sink well for me, especially because it's going to be a fairly basic roof once it's open. Once the roof comes down, it becomes very easy to fix everything. It really does. So that's the other nice thing, is that building from scratch is a lot easier than fixing what's there, if that makes sense. So that's basically what that is. Now, on the downfall is the roof is going to cost $10,000. So tell you what, let's go take a look at this broken beam that I found and what I started to do, and then we'll get back into that whole money thing, because got some news on that. So one thing that I had noticed last week, and I've noticed it from day one, but I noticed it last week and it was bugging me, was the way that this floor slopes and sinks over towards the stairwell, right? Just kind of bugged me the way it always seemed to do this. It's hard to pick up on camera, but it does have kind of a sinkhole effect going. And it was really annoying me, so we went down to the basement and we tried to look to see what we had. And well, let's go show you what we found. And yeah, that'll be a fun one to fix. Okay, down in the basement we go. All the spooky spirits, get out. All right, so as we come into the basement, we're going to turn around and we're going to lift our head high, and we're going to show you, ta-da, this. Doesn't look like much, but it's broken and breaking, so that's not good. So as you can see, we have a support column over here onto the bottom side of that beam over there. And then over here, it's tied into the side beam there, but with no real extra support there. But in the middle, all that water damage has started to take a toll. Ah, I'm stuck. There we go. Something grabbed me. It was that pipe. Now, one thing I'll show you is my little mini temporary beam that we've got over here. So this beam is just a couple of 2x4s and 6s all nailed together to make basically a big block. And the only reason it's there is because, quite literally, I didn't have any way to get any of this other stuff out of the way yet. So what I've done is I've just hit that floor joist, and then there's one over there, and that's why it's at an angle, and that's why I've flipped it the way it is just so maximum, I guess we'll call it contact. And then we just have a little bottle jack down here holding everything up. Well, it's a 12-ton bottle jack, but It's not trying to lift anything into position. I didn't try to straighten the floor. I just tried to put this up and put tension on it so that the floor doesn't bounce or sag. But we do need to fix this beam, which means all this stuff is going to have to get out of the way. So, yeah. Eventually I'm going to knock this stuff out. Hopefully, maybe even this weekend or next week. Hopefully, maybe we can kind of get some of this junk out of here, get it knocked down. And then the plan, because the beam actually isn't horrible going back there, it's a lot more solid. And this end over here, the corner's actually dried out. But what we're going to do is basically temporarily we're going to make another beam to sister underneath this one. We're going to go back a ways and then back over to here with some jack posts on either end holding it in. So that's the plan with the broken beam, but easier said than done, as is everything in this project. So yeah, that'll be a thing. So anyway, let's go back to the front porch. And I want to talk about this money thing real quick, and what I've decided to do about it. Hopefully it's a good thing. So if you watch the end of my first walkthrough video, that very long video, at the very end I went on this little mini rant about I wasn't planning on doing a GoFundMe or anything like that. Well, times they are a-changin'. So let me explain why I have let me explain why I felt that way versus why I have changed my mind, and we will be putting together a GoFundMe for this project. So, in the beginning, the reason I did not want to do something like that is because I was afraid it would come across with the appearance that so many of these other campaigns you see were built under. We've all seen campaigns on GoFundMe for like, I got a DWI and I can't pay my ticket, can you all help me out? Or more famously, or maybe infamously, or maybe not, maybe it was just me, there was a couple a few years back that sold everything that they had. They bought a sailboat because that's what everybody was doing on YouTube, was buying sailboats and sailing the world. And I love sailing as much as the next guys, so I happened to see the story on the forums. They bought a boat, they sold everything they had, they packed up, they went to go sail the world, and they sank the boat leaving the harbor because they didn't know how to sail. So pretty much they had no business doing what they were doing in the way that they were doing it. But when they did that, they came running back to the public to GoFundMe and said, you know, hey, we just lost everything we ever had because we were stupid. Please buy us a new boat. Now, they left out the because we were stupid part. They basically just said, we lost everything, buy us a new boat. Please, 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 oh, public, help us. And I just didn't want to come across like that. Like, you know, hey, I want this, so everybody else, you know, can you all pay for it for me? Like, I didn't want to come across like it was that sort of thing. However, for a bunch of reasons, I've decided to go ahead and do it anyway. And the first being that I'm hoping that so far I've shown that I am more than willing to be putting my own time, energy, and money into this project. Now, obviously, without anybody's help, it's going to take me a lot longer to do it, but I'm still committed to doing it no matter what it takes. But because the roof of this house is going to be such a major one-time expense, you know, like I said, I'm estimating about $10,000 or so. That's something that obviously I can save for, but getting it done would be a lot better to do it right up front versus later. Now, we are still trying to figure out things like loans and stuff like that, if that's a good possibility with the house. That is a possibility I'm looking into, because I still need to be, I'm not counting on, you know, somebody just handing me a check for $10,000, right? Nobody ever really kind of counts on that sort of thing. Nobody budgets that everybody else is paying for everything. So I am exploring those avenues, trying to figure out the best way to come up with the funds to do this, hopefully before winter. As hard as it's going to be and as long as the process is going to be, if I can get it done before winter, I'm going to feel a lot better about the rest of the house. There's one nice part is that while the floors down here seem to be sinking with these little beams, the main structure of the house is still, like, if you go to the attic, it's all level. It's perfect. So because of that, I have no qualms about replacing the roof, even if like a floor isn't straight down here. While we shore up the cellar and get everything straight, it's not going to affect our roof after we've put it on. Like, it's not going to put things out of line or nothing. One of the other reasons that I've decided to do it is simply because people have been asking me to. While I do have a direct link to a PayPal donation down below, and like an Amazon wish list or something, mostly the electric stuff for hopefully getting that stuff done, The local historian Vicky stopped by middle of last week, and she told me that she's had people reach out to her directly as well, asking how they can help, but that they aren't familiar or used to or comfortable using like PayPal or online services for financial transactions. They just prefer to do everything with a more personal touch. And I think that's great, and I'm absolutely floored by it. So I have a post office box, and I will leave that address down below. I gave it to her as well to give out. So I'm going to put that down below. So anybody that does want to send anything my way that way, feel free to just use that post office box and send, whatever you want. All I ask is that, you kind of leave the hate mail to a minimum. Yes, I know that I'm doing a lot of stuff wrong, or at least wrong for now. But yeah, for anybody that wants to use snail mail, so to speak, feel free. That post office box is up and running and ready to go. So anybody that does want to send anything, feel free, even if it's just a Christmas card or whatever. Everything, all the support, all the reaching out is definitely appreciated. I love hearing from people. I love hearing the stories and the people that are hoping that things come back. So, in conclusion, I will have not only the original PayPal link is still obviously good, but now we're adding a GoFundMe link, which you are free to share around if you so desire, as well as a post office box for people that want to go that route for anything that they wish to send, even if it's just well wishes, instead of having to use an online service. Okay, so that said, I think that's pretty much it for this video. So not anything major, just, we patched a hole in the roof, and again, that patch is a Band-Aid at best. It's not there to stop water from coming in. It's there to minimize how much direct water comes pouring down the stairwell from torrential downpours. Now, it was raining yesterday, and there's no more rain in here than there was Monday. I think part of the reason why it still got wet after we put that patch over, A, is because it's not a perfect patch, and B, is because that rainstorm we had on Monday was a doozy. Really windy, blowing sideways type of rain, kind of rain. So while we did get some, dampness in here from that storm, yesterday's rain didn't add anything to it. So we definitely have made a dent in the hole, if that. So anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I really didn't do a lot. I didn't do a lot of filming just because it was a lot harder to do filming while working at that point. And it was really warm when we were trying to tackle it. So thank you so much for watching. Again, everybody, all the support, all the outreach has been amazing. All the comments, subscriptions, likes, views, everything, sharing, just even word of mouth and people seeing how it's going. It just means a lot to me that people care that I care. And I really do appreciate it. So again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for everything. A special thanks to oldhousedreams.com and their support. They reached out not too long ago. And again, all of this stuff, your support and your positivity is what's keeping me even more motivated to get this going. Even now that I'm back at work, it still got me the energy to come over here in the mornings and after I get out of work, at least while I've still got daylight. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.